The Mountain Goats, Jenny's from Thebes. Album review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from one of indie rock's most prolific folk bands, the Mountain Goats, headed by lead singer John Darnell. They are just one of the most beloved indie folk bands of all time. I'm not going to bore you with their entire discography because it is gigantic. They do put out a lot of material, but a good bulk of that material is just so influential, so just genuinely fantastic across the board. Even if in the 2000s I kind of got out of this mood with them. I just wasn't really, listening to them as much, but in the 2010s I found myself kind of re-finding my love for the band, going back in their discography, listening to the classics, as well as them putting out what I think are some of my favorite albums of theirs, like Transcendental Youth, Meet the Champ, also their Goths album. No joke, these are three of my favorite albums in their entire discography. But since then, I feel like we're in a weird place with the band. Their follow-up album, In League with Dragons, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, initially I was very positive in the review. I think I gave it a strong 7. But ever since, I can barely get through this thing. And I thought Getting Into Knives was even worse. This ended up on my worst albums of the year playlist. And also, I don't know. I feel like it's actually one of the worst albums they've ever put out. So much so that when they released the Dark in Here album a week later, I completely just wrote it off. And I do feel bad about that because I do think it's kind of a return to form. Now, last year we saw them put out the Bleed Out album, which, I mean, at the time I was very lukewarm on it, but I have, grown to it a little bit. It does very much have a fiery passion that their last few albums did not have. And narratively and lyrically, there's a lot to enjoy there. Now, that leads me to this latest album, Jenny from Thebes, which, initially I just kind of put off as another Mountain Goats record in their very lengthy discography. But leading up to this, it was revealed that this is supposed to be a spiritual successor to All Hail West Texas, one of their best albums of all time. So that alone made me want to review this album. I thought the singles were fine, and this album is fine. It's certainly not bad, though. Clean Slate kicks us off, and it's actually a really great track. It's a very charming, very sweet single. I've enjoyed it since it dropped as a single. I love the upbeat pianos. It's very sweet on the ears, but it still has a ton of energy behind it. But most importantly, the passion is definitely alive and well on this track. Over the last decade or so, I feel like the passion in Mountain Goats records are kind of dwindling, but here it is, front and center. It's well written, it's well performed, it's really memorable. The horns and woodwinds, they're a nice touch too. I have a lot of the same thoughts on Ground Level. It's upbeat and it's pretty hectic actually, but it never gets heavy. But there certainly is a lot to take in between the backing vocals, the constantly bouncing around synths, and John Darnell's legendary, very wordy performances. Everything comes together here, though, and the sporadic references to their All Hail West Texas album throughout this album are just a nice touch. With Cleaning Crew, you can absolutely argue that this track is nothing out of the box. But this just puts me in such a good mood. It puts a big old smile on my face. It is on the simpler side of things, but the horns and pianos make this a little classier, and John's performance is really sweet and tender. Murder at the 18th Street Garage, I feel like this is a track that you're either going to absolutely love or hate. I actually really love it. It brings a little energy to this album. It's probably the most raucous track here. I personally love hearing the Mountain Goats freak out a little bit, and this track has great energy to it. It's punchy, it's got some teeth to it, but the passion in the songwriting isn't lost. It's great. Now, we are not out of the woods as far as modern Mountain Goats go. Take, for example, Only One Way Out. Take, for example, Only One Way. I hear this track, and every sort of reservation I've had on the last 4 Mountain Goats records has just flooded back instantly. Why do tracks like this exist? Between the ho-hum instrumental and John's performance, which really sounds more phoned in than anything, I'm shocked this made the cut. And the low energy performance, it's not for me. And there was a time in their discography where a track like this could have thrived, especially off of songwriting. But this is just okay. Fresh Tattoo, it's not the worst track here, but it's just very middle of the road. I have a lot of the same problems with this track that I have with albums like Getting Into Knives. From a distance, it sounds like a perfectly viable modern Mountain Goats track. But when you dig a little deeper, The songwriting isn't here, the passion isn't here, and trust me, this did not have any right being the longest cut on this album. From the Nebraska Plant is where I draw the line. In this case, I have nothing positive to say. This is a plain Jane, boring-ass soft rock tune that John Darnielle couldn't save with the best lyrics of his life. Like, sure, it's nostalgic and sweet on the ears, yeah, that goes without saying, but this is just everything I don't like about modern Mountain Goats records. A lot of the same thoughts on Water Tower, just this ho-hum, low-key, low-energy track from the Mountain Goats right now. It's just not doing it for me. It's pleasant on the ears, once again, and John's songwriting is here for a change, and, there's very few moments where his songwriting isn't captivating. But why is this just so bored sounding? Like, the energy is down and everything comes crashing down with it. And Going to Dallas, once again, it's just middle of the road. There's elements to this track that I really love, and there's ones that I just can do without completely. Like, I love the backing vocals, and I love the strum guitar on this track. But it does feel like we've been here multiple times for some godforsaken reason, and I don't know why this had to be the shortest track here. I think it's got some really great elements to it. I wish they flushed them out. This is just another middle-of-the-road Mountain Goats record. There's certainly been worse records in their discography, but for now, this is fine. It's fine. Like Same as Cash, this track just makes me happy all around. It's upbeat, it's got that heart and soul to it. This, to me, is the sound of a modern Mountain Goats record. It's cinematic, it's got this just great sense of adventure to it. This, to me, feels like a mission statement for the whole album. Jenny 3 has the determination and heart that I wish every track on this album had. It's got the passion that so much of this album just still can't seem to match, and it's good. It's super classy. I love the strings. The theatrical edge to this track is really nice as well. It's short, it's sweet, and really impactful. And Great Pirates, which it ends off this album, I think it's the best track here. This is a dreamy, sort of chilled-out jam that I should hate on paper, but it has a lot going for it. It's much more than just a vibe. It's got some nods to alternative country, and arguably the best hook on this entire album. It's warm, it's inviting, lyrically, it's compelling, it's a fantastic finale. I wish I could just go head over heels for a Mountain Goats record these days, but the consistency is still not there for me. There's almost every track on this album, John Darnielle still brings to the table his fantastic lyrics, as they have since, I don't know, the early 90s at this point. But the problem here is it's just so back and forth. There are tracks that have heart and passion and a real determination to get this album to sound great. And when that's going, I'm a happy boy. This is a great album. My issue is the second the energy gets a little low, the band seems to lose all of its passion, heart, and just pride for that matter. I don't know. This is just still a very middle-of-the-road album for me from the Mountain Goats, and I do hope that they put out at least one more album I truly love. But for now, I'm feeling a decent 6 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.